So I have an idea about why all your jobs are so hard that I'd like to share with you. What I mean by that is the aspiration, the intention, and sometimes it feels like it's just so slow. Would you agree with that? Yeah, like you're going to go faster. And David poses the question, what's beyond sustainability? But if you think about it, sustainability was beyond the extract value paradigm we had. Right? We could see things were not working. We really needed to move toward much more of a sustainability or an arrest disorder, slow that down. And then we slowly realized that arrest disorder and sustainability was maybe not enough. We couldn't just continue to do less harm. We needed to do good in the world. The interesting thing is each of those took a different mind at work. And my belief is that right now that people don't have the mind it takes to go to regeneration. And what I call that mind is evolving capacity. It's about going from trying to do things to building the capacity in all beings to do for themselves, to live out their essence. So what would that mind look like? I believe these, I framed these a decade or so ago as the 7 first principles of regeneration. It's back as far as you could go to understanding how living systems work, and I believe building this mind is the only pathway to get to where what we're all trying to achieve can happen. The first is we have to move the mind from seeing parts to being able to see wholes. And you don't see it by looking at something as parts and trying to put it together. You look at an entity, whether that's a child, or whether it's a business, or whether it is a life shed, and you ask, what is it seeking to create, contribute in the world? And how can I support it by building capacity to do that? Secondly, you have to ask, what is its unique potential? We tend to look at things, and we're framed that way from the extract paradigm, to look at things as problems. And the minute we do that, we fragment it and pull it apart. So learning to see the whole first, and then to be able to see the specific, unique potential of that entity, that child, that life shed, is the second mind that we have to be able to create, or the aspect of mind. The next is, and this is that's so foreign to people, sometimes people roll their eyes at me when I say this, which is everything that is alive has an essence. And that's different than it's one of 4 types, or it's some category. It is essentially itself. And there is no such thing as watershed management which will work for every life shed. There's no such thing as a way to look at every child and figure out what category they go in. Seeing their essence. Each of you has an essence. I start with that when I'm working with a business. And I start when I think about my own grandchildren. The next thing is to work developmentally. Now, developmental, the idea of that is to be able to remove the veil so you can see the full potential that can be developed in that being, and then work to build capacity. For me, this is the essence of making democracy work, where we're in trouble right now, where if we can't build the capacity for critical thinking skills, for personal self-management, I'm totally subject to everything outside of me. Everything is nested in a regenerative paradigm. There are no things that are side by side. We all live in some nest, whether it is us, a community, and an ecosystem, but there's always a larger ecosystem. Everything must be faced and considered a nodal intervention when we do it. Nodal is like acupuncture. You put a needle here, maybe another needle over here, and the whole system moves. We tend to do things too much in priority and broken apart in pieces. And the last is to think about the systemic reciprocity that can come about. Not reciprocity between 2 entities in a transactional way, but rather, how do I do something in a way that it makes the whole more complete? That it moves everything at once in a way that it is better and is beneficial to the whole. That's what I call the regenerative mind, and it is a way of, I've used living systems to bring these into my life, and I was raised by a Mohawk grandmother and grandfather who taught me that this is a process which was natural to them growing up. This mind was built, and people pointed out to them these nature of things. They didn't give me a list of 7, but that's what I eventually heard. So being able to bring together a whole planet of people around this idea of a regenerative mind that looks at things as whole, as having potential, as working from essence, as being able to be developed, to be able to be evolved, to be more tomorrow than they can today, not just fixed or put in place, and to be nested, to be nodal, and to be systemic in its reciprocity. Now, there's one problem I'd like to share with you. I think it's a problem we are facing with democratic institutions and democratic governing around the planet. And they are the things that keep us from building this mind. So I'm going to ask you to consider in your own organizations whether some of the things I'd like to mention here quickly might not be toxic kind of ideas that undermine the health and vitality that happens in an organization. These are 5 mental paradigms where these come from. It's amazing to me, since we haven't had a real ruling aristocracy anywhere in the Western world for a long time, how much we still have that's based on an Aristotelian paradigm. Hierarchies of how we manage people. Delegation, which comes only if you believe there are some people who are smarter than others. Now, that's probably a little heresy, and I don't get rid of them in organizations, but we redefine what it is that work that people do so that they're not in the process of managing each other. The aristocracy itself is still with us, and I believe it has toxic practices. The next paradigm which still exists is the assembly line. The Industrial Revolution brought in the machine kind of look. Your brain is a computer. No, it's not. Your brain is a living thing. And because of this particular thing, we've got the idea that feedback, 360-degree or any other form, will give us an understanding of ourselves. But what it does is it actually prevents us from learning to see ourselves, learning to be reflective. And I know that capability can be built in organizations because I do it and suddenly people can see themselves. It's one of the reasons I don't like performance reviews or any of the other things that come from the next paradigm, but feedback to me is one of the most deadly. Now, you may argue with me, but I've learned so much about myself from what people told me. But the problem is, first, it may not be true, and I'm sure you've suspected that. It may belong to them and not you. But more importantly, you're not building the capacity of children when you do that in school, businesses when you do it in business, or government or any other system that you do it in. So I ask you to consider looking at feedback as something that is toxic. The next paradigm was John Watson in the 1920s said, I will teach you how to manipulate all your people, you great business leaders, if you'll help me build a lab. And the way he studied how to manipulate people was he studied how to manipulate rats. So if you are a rat, or if you manage rats, that theory is fabulous. If you do not manage rats and you do not see yourself as a rat needing to be run through a maze, then all of the things that came out of that, including incentives, rewards, recognition, performance reviews, all of those are teaching and engaging you as though you are a rat, not as though you are a human. There were others who reacted to that out of the human potential movement and said, no, 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 we are not rats. Humans are very special. They're unique. They can do amazing things. And by the way, we could do culture surveys, and we can figure out all the time where they are. I think culture surveys are toxic because they do not get people to talk to each other. They allow things to happen that get aggregated that are not true, and they get translated into things that are not understandable. So when they asked me today to announce to my group this morning, I'd like for you to do the survey at the end of the meeting, what do you think I did? I didn't ignore it. I told them, but I also told them this is a toxic practice we're about to do. So I ask you to look at in your own organizations. I have a new book that I just put in 30 of the 100 toxic practices I feel like are undermining not only our ability to create a healthy and vital planet and whole system, but it is right now destroying our ability to govern and have democracy. And it's got to become as high on the scale as it is to work on sustainability and having a healthy planet, because it's in trouble, particularly because of these many toxic practices. The living systems idea is one that I think that's a mind that could give you what you need in your jobs. It could give us in democracy what we need to be able to govern, and it can help us raise children through school systems that can think with a whole mind, that actually can see wholeness, can see potential, can see essence, can work developmentally, and can see things as nested, nodal, and reciprocal. So I hope my new book, little promotion, please. It has some of this in it, and I'm loving to have conversations with people about a way I can engage you around it, because I'm not interested in selling books. You can put them in a closet then. I'm interested in engaging around these ideas. So I look forward to meeting some of you, talking with you, and thank you very much. It is exactly 10 minutes, Elaine. Thank you.